So here I am this morning, super happy to be talking to Robert. So Robert and I did business together, or tried to do business together
Uh-huh.
while I was working in the last company that I worked for, which is now called Accolade, because Robert is actually a language business guy. And that is really something that I wanted to have on the podcast because I love showcasing what people do in languages. And you obviously are a language worker, but
Hmm.
you just do it from another perspective. And you started early on already with a little bit of a twist. So I will ask you to present yourself, of course, but then
Yeah.
just let's start by talking about the fact that you studied languages and computers, right? Or computing, something like that.
Yeah. So I guess even going further back
Mm-hmm.
than that. So first of all, hi, I'm Robert Martin. I'm from Ireland, and I guess I've been working in the localization industry, pretty much constantly since I graduated from university back in, I think it was 2020, 2001. I'm so used to saying 2020 something,
Yep.
2001. But even before that, I guess, growing up, I was one of those kids who was originally a lot quieter
Hmm.
and into things like reading books. And when I reached secondary school, developed an interest in languages, French and German. So I studied French and German in secondary school
Mm.
and loved that, I always liked English. And of course, in Ireland, we have the tradition of learning Irish in school as
Mm-hmm.
well,
So I've heard.
which was a little bit dysfunctional. Why was it dysfunctional? Because in many cases, there was an expectation that we would kind of assimilate it because we were Irish. But of course, we didn't use it in our day-to-day lives. And so it's a difficult language to learn and very different to the other European languages as well in many cases. So that was a bit of a failure actually. And even though now I can understand, notions of Irish, I suppose, or bits and pieces of Irish, it's not a language that I would feel comfortable speaking.
Mm.
So, but anyway, that was school, and eventually I studied French and German. Loved that. Um, and I guess I grew up as one of these Irish Celtic tiger cubs. So, I'm of the generation where we didn't have computers originally.
Mm-hmm.
Our first computer, I was like 10, 11, 12 in the house, and they were like more computer consoles. And then mobile phones came along, I guess, when I was in my late teens,
Mm-hmm.
or even in university, I think I might have been when I got my first mobile phone. Um, but Ireland as a country was kind of in a state of flux as well. So we were flirting with the Europeans. We joined the European Union and, of course, gained a lot of funding and benefits from that. We also flirted with America, North America, so the USA and Canada. And, I guess a lot of people in the localization industry will identify with this fact that we received investment both from the USA for companies who wanted to enter
Mm-hmm.
Europe and
Mm-hmm.
also investment from Europe, right? So, and now I guess after Brexit, we are the country that speaks English, right?
Yeah,
The
that's
native
true.
English speakers in Europe. Of course, everybody else has caught up since then, in terms of English speaking. But yeah, so I was, I guess, very interested in this idea of Europe and languages and French culture and German culture, and I still am. There's a bit of noise outside there. I don't know if you can hear it.
Yeah, it's fine. No, no, not so much.
Okay,
It's fine.
good stuff. Um, and so I decided to study languages with computing, which would allow me to learn more about French culture and politics and literature, and also German culture and literature, and allow me to study in those countries as well.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of my course, I went to France, I worked in France, I then went back to France after college, and I also spent a year in Germany. And I guess I was attracted by the idea of culture, literature, those kind of things, but also there was a bit of kind of not pressure, but I guess my parents, who I suppose were my advisors at the time, and the other people around me thought that, yeah, European Union speaking languages, that has to be something that's commercial and viable. So in one way, it was a very practical decision. In another way, I liked languages. And that's how I ended up studying languages in the University of Limerick, where they had the Localization Research Center, which was
Mm.
run by Reinhard Scheler at the time. And so I studied some of the localization modules there as well. And yeah, that's how I started my
Hmm.
academic part of my career, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane because as far as I could see from your LinkedIn profile, and everybody knows that's my reference for asking professional questions about your path usually.
Mhm.
So I guess you went straight into working with the translation localization company. So you didn't have those halfway here, halfway there jobs, or you didn't do something in between before you actually
Yeah,
got into the groove of actually working for the big company. So you went straight to the industry, right?
pretty much. I had one kind of year. The first year, I suppose you could call it a little bit of a transitional year in the sense that my first job following graduation was that of a technical writer. So I was originally recruited um, by a company which now actually would have become Accolade. It was originally called Sysilog, and then I think they were bought by a company called Euroscript, which
Yes,
was bought
Aeroscript was
by
my company. Yeah, the one I was recruited
Amplexer.
by.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they were bought by Amplexer and then Accolade, and I think some of the people are still there.
Mm-hmm.
But we were recruited. There was three of us from my class that were recruited by this company, Sysilog, to come over and work as technical writers to write documentation, technical manuals.
Mm-hmm.
And we were recruited specifically, I think, to work in telecommunications. So I spent about a year trying to be a technical writer,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I didn't like it.
Because I
Um,
had no idea that you had actually done language work as such.
yeah, a little bit. There was one weekend they also asked me to translate
Mm-hmm.
from French to English, and I don't know why it happened, but it happened on a weekend that they gave me a laptop with a license of Trados,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was HTML editor or HTML QA editor to edit, tags because it was a website or something.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I really didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that I had to sit in a computer and look at a screen and work my way around these tags and compare the English string or the French string with the English string and make it all happen. I felt that for me to become a translator, I would find it very isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that, I was a shy kid. I didn't want to talk to people as a kid, but I guess as I matured, I realized that I liked communicating with people and was drawn to communication, and finding out about people, finding out about companies and the business world, I guess, as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for about 12 to 18 months. And then I decided that I wanted to move back to Ireland,
Mm-hmm.
on the pretext of doing a master's. And the master's was going to be in German literature and language pedagogy.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Um, and I did it. I did it for
Mm-hmm.
2 years in Trinity College, but I didn't finish it. I didn't finish the thesis. And there was a few different reasons for that. But while I was doing the master's, I came back to Ireland and I had a job interview with a company called Simultrans,
Mm-hmm.
who were one of the, I guess, localization companies that was founded, I suppose, in the 80s, or I guess, yeah, they would have been in the 80s at that point. And they were in California. Mark
Mm-hmm.
Homnick was the CEO. And they interviewed me for what was essentially a telemarketing position. So my job was to call companies to identify people who needed translations and then to pass on the leads to other salespeople in the team.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I guess I got the job because I already had an understanding of what the translation industry was. I understood a lot of the concepts through my undergraduate degree. And this was my baptism of fire going into the sales arena or business development arena, because the job was literally making phone calls, all day long.
Wow.
Um, and so the first day, I worked with a lady who basically we went into a meeting room. There was a list of phone numbers, a list of companies, and we got on the phone. And the idea was just to talk to people on the phone and really try to keep people talking for as long as possible. And it was quite comical, really, because she ended up having a great career in technology companies, but she was, a typical Irish chancer in one way, and was quite, funny and comical, and we had fun. We had fun doing it. Um, and still, in many ways, that hasn't. I mean, in some ways, you have to be a lot more respectful of people's time these days because people have, distractions coming from all angles, and have very limited time. But in other ways, that's still kind of what you have to do today is really talk to people
Mm-hmm.
to understand what it is they're interested in and what their problems are and what the problems are that you can help them solve,
Mm-hmm. So I guess you had a pretty good overview even back then on what clients really needed and wanted and how to make it happen for them.
Yeah, I mean, of course, things have evolved and changed a lot
Mm-hmm.
since, but the time, quality, price, or cost conversation, has been happening since then, right? It's the triangle of, do you want it, high quality or fast or cheap, or,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to pay? All of those things. And, we're still talking about language quality, right? We've never stopped
Mm-hmm.
talking about language quality.
Yeah.
That's what we sell, as an industry, we sell language quality or
Mm-hmm.
language impact. So that hasn't changed. Um, people want more things, they want other things, they want more articulated versions of the same things, right? More sophisticated versions of the
Mm-hmm.
same things. Um, so yeah, it's moved on a little bit, but the fundamentals are the same, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So ever since those days, you have basically done everything from the business point of view in the
Yeah.
industry, right? Because then you moved into company. So you worked for lots of people, lots of sizes, lots of
Yeah.
styles, countries, and all of that. So let's just hear a little bit about the chronological order of all of that.
So I have worked for a lot of companies, but not in the sense that, oh, he couldn't hold down a job. Um,
No, I know.
there was I guess there was some companies were a better match for me than
Hmm.
others.
Of course.
And then afterwards, I started my own consulting firm as well, which by
Hmm.
nature means you work with different clients and different companies, right?
Yep.
Different sizes. Um, in the earlier part of my career, I guess the two companies that were most influential were working with Alchemy Software,
Hmm.
where I had the opportunity to become a sales manager very quickly. And I was quite a young sales manager. So I worked with Tony O'Dowd, who a lot of people in the industry will know was the general manager for Corel Corporation Ireland. So they were a software company who did, I guess, CAD/CAM software. And then he developed an application called Corel Catalyst, which was then renamed Alchemy Catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a software localization tool, which gave you a visual interface to translate strings and software applications. And then that was expanded to, cover HTML and other formats. And so I was there for about maybe 4 or 5 years. And that gave me a lot of exposure to, technology companies who needed to translate software. And also kind of gave me a lot of experience in terms of managing other salespeople, managing teams, managing targets and meeting targets, and marketing initiatives, trade shows, email marketing, branding, communicating value to customers, all of that kind of thing. And Tony was a great mentor. He was, he remains full of energy and kind of a force of nature, somebody who's very buoyant, a lot of experience, a very positive outlook in life, and kind of really helped me develop a similarly positive outlook. I'm very much a person whose cup is half full rather than half empty, at least professionally. When I'm working, the cup is always half full. And so that was a very important job for me. Eventually, I wanted change. I went to work for a couple of other providers. So I did a little stint in Merrill Brink, which is now ULG. And I did another stint a very short stint in LanguageWire. And then I landed in WeLocalize, which,
yes.
one of the big companies, one of the big LSPs, but a little bit different, I guess, in the sense that WeLocalize, at that time, I think were singled out as really focusing on bringing, smart people together to develop, smart solutions and innovative solutions for, big global brands.
Yes, because I guess it was 2009, something like that. I don't know when you worked there, but I was working for WeLocalize for Apple. So I guess they had just started working with Apple, and they were looking for people who had already worked for Apple, and that's how it happened for me. So I guess it was probably around that time when they got all those super big accounts, right?
Yeah, and I think, of course, the top 10 or the top 20 LSPs have kind of changed or evolved over the years, and they continue to redefine and to evolve and redefine what they represent, right? But at that time, WeLocalize was very much branding themselves as innovators. They want to be people who provided thought leadership and innovation and bringing clever people together to come up with, new solutions and new things, and that was very exciting. I got to work with a lot of very smart people in sales, in operations, in technology, in account management, and because they were able to provide a very wide range of services and a big range of languages, and focused on some very, very visible brands, the Apples or the Dells or the Expedias or the, lots of different types of companies. It gave me fantastic exposure, to, again, understanding what clients want and big global companies, but on a higher level. So more localization programs, localization programs for big global enterprises, which of course can, tend to become more and more complex as the companies evolve and you have different stakeholders, different content types, different technologies, many languages. Yeah. So that was a great experience.
Yeah, I bet. So I only knew them from that other side, but It was good working with them, so I have no complaints.
I had a great time working in Relocalize. I always remember my time there very fondly and only have good things to say about them.
Mhm.
I really, really enjoyed it.
But you were in England at this time, or?
Yeah, I was in London, but I worked very closely with both the UK offices and the Dublin office. So we kind of worked as a team. At that time, We Localize was acquiring companies as well. So they acquired a company in um, the northwest of the UK, so in Cheshire, in a little village called Tarpley, and that was the core team. And then a little bit later, I was actually involved a little bit with identifying the company that became the London entity for We Localize.
Mhm.
So at the time we were working with or we were providing a proposal with a hotel company who wanted translation, but they also wanted the content to be, well, they wanted the content to be created,
Mhm.
translated, and then SEO optimized.
Mhm.
And so what we did was we went out and identified a partner that could help us to optimize the translated content across a range of languages. And the partner that we found to help us do that then became, they were originally called Traffic Optimizer, and then they became Adapt Localization. And I think they're still called Adapt, which is a division of Relocalize, which focuses on multilingual digital marketing and search and, you know, the next phase after you've localized your content, how do you make it perform on the web, on the internet, so that people buy more of your product?
Wow.
So that was great. That was interesting, and that's the kind of thing that I like. I don't know if you know is it Myers-Briggs or Briggs-Myers, those personality types, the 16 different personality types.
No, I don't
So
know.
I've been defined as an ENTJ.
Hmm.
We can look that up for your viewers later on and give definitions, but it's kind of the adventurer, the kind of the person who kind of storms ahead and loves the big ideas and the big concepts and wants to go into new territories and is stimulated by that.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
that's why you went to
necessarily,
Spain.
yeah,
Then you went
yeah.
to Spain. Was it close to that time, or was it much later?
So no, I came to Spain in 2016. So I was in Relocalize until July 2016. And then I came to Spain. I think I had like a month off or a few weeks off, and I came to Spain in September 2016.
Mm.
So I had there was a little bit of a change of guard at the time in the management team, and I didn't love my new manager. And I was kind of ready. I guess I was feeling um unappreciated by my manager at the time, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to go and do something different. I'm going to do something for myself. And I was reaching out to different people in the industry and, trying to assess if, people would like to engage with me almost as a freelance consultant or on a different level, rather than working for a larger corporate company. Could I work for myself and offer my expertise to other types of companies as well? And so the first client that I had, and we can talk about some of my clients in a while, but the owner was based in Spain. And so originally the idea was just to come over and spend time with the owner to really understand his business and understand his clients and then come up with a plan. It wasn't necessarily that I was going to go and live in Spain forever, but the idea was just to spend time together to work on a plan for the company, for the first client that I had.
Oh, so then you're already working independently. You already
Yeah.
created your company, or that comes a bit later? Because I love that name, so I need to talk about it.
It all happened simultaneously, basically. So I formed the company in July 2016, and I called it Magic Beans.
Yes, I love it.
The concept of being able to help you grow
Yeah.
And of course, it feels a little bit simplistic to call a company magic beans. I don't know if it feels a little bit
I don't feel
childlike,
that way.
but growth means different things for different people, you
Hmm.
know. And I came from the sales and marketing side of the localization industry. So those were the services that I was going to offer, or the expertise that I could offer to my customers.
Hmm.
Now we've expanded to provide other services and other offerings. And, now I guess, the problems that people want to solve, typically they touch different parts of the company. So it's not only sales or only marketing.
Hmm.
It might also be people. It might
Yep.
also be the culture. It might be processes, or it might be the identity. Like what is our identity now in
Hmm.
2023, 2024?
And
Who
also
are
understanding what kind of services they should be offering
yeah,
and why and to whom and all of that.
exactly. Identifying new services, identifying ways in which they can create value, which they
Hmm.
can charge for their clients. And that's huge at the moment,
Yeah.
because our industry, our world continues to evolve, right? Our world is evolving very, very quickly, and our industry has to move with it,
Hmm.
you know? Um, and so, yeah, I started the company in 2016. The first customer I'm still working with, it's Textrans, who
Hmm.
we've spoken about before, and they
Yeah.
focus on Brazilian Portuguese and European Portuguese. And we have a great relationship, and I'm pretty much, one of the internal team for them, even though I'm still at my own company. And yeah, we've been working together since 2016. And the goal really for them was that they, at the time, and they still provide great quality, great service, but they were very dependent on one particular client at the
Hmm.
time. And of course, that's dangerous for a smaller translation company, because if that client disappears in the morning, then what do you do? What do you do with your staff, your
Yeah.
translators? And so the idea there was really to develop strong relationships with a range of other customers, so
Hmm.
that we weren't completely dependent on one or two clients, And of course, that takes time as well, you know. Um, in many cases in the translation industry, we spend a lot of time and energy on selling or building relationships. And of course, from a production perspective, we don't switch on the floodgates. We turn on a little tap, it trickles through, and then slowly, slowly, slowly it builds and builds and builds. But I'm happy to say that, yeah, we were successful in identifying quite a few new clients, and all of those clients are still with us.
Yes, and that's how
We
we
don't
met,
lose clients.
really.
Yeah,
That's
that's how we
because
met. Exactly.
because I was a vendor manager and I was in
Yeah,
charge of Portuguese and Brazilian
yeah,
Portuguese and all of that. So that was one of my
exactly.
areas, and that's how we met. And ever
And that,
since, I have
yeah,
been kind of following your
yeah,
your activities, because it's everybody knows it's one of the things that interests me the most is the business part of our business. And since you are a businessman in the language community, that is just fascinating to me. And this is why I keep following your work.
I'm often more surprised. I'm surprised sometimes that we don't talk enough about the sales and marketing side of the
Hmm.
translation industry.
Hmm.
We talk about companies and company growth, and we talk about operational challenges. We talk about profit margins and pressure on the profit margin. We talk about rates. We
Mm.
don't
Oh, yeah.
often talk about, selling to people or selling to customers.
Hmm.
And there's myself, there's a couple of other consultants in the industry, and we have the larger, I guess, consulting firms, and we all do a little bit of it. But it's certainly a topic that most people want to know more about and want to improve their skills in, you
Yeah,
know?
I think a lot of people don't even realize that these days, and it now for many, many years, probably 25 years or so, there are a lot of multinational companies in our industry, like a lot of them, right? And they do have all of these departments. But people don't think about, when we think about the industry, we're not thinking about the finance department, the IT department, and the sales department, which are really these days the heart of the business itself. right? That's how it works. We just
It's
don't think about
interesting.
it.
Yeah. It's interesting because the marketing function in global enterprises has become more and more and more and more important. So previously, it was always products. Companies were product led. They would build something, then they would sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, increasingly, marketing is taking more of the budgets, more of the power, more of the decision making,
Mm-hmm.
because they have the market intelligence, the positioning, the product information, the communication with the audience and with the markets. So sales and marketing have become more and more recognized, and I guess that goes along with the recognition of localization centers for excellence as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because localization directly supports sales and marketing,
Yeah.
and global growth.
I think it's really important to talk about what's behind what people see, because I think that basically in the freelance community, a lot of people don't really know what a translation company is at the moment in LSP. That's why we don't call it translation company anymore, right? Because translation is now just a part of it, and it's in a range of lots of services and things that go in and out, and you have HR departments, and it's so complex, like any other company that you know of, right? So I always like bringing this topic up so that they can see that it's not only what we see that is happening, because you're right, we only talk about rates and this and that, the same subjects always, but this is really really relevant, and it takes up a lot of the big companies' budget, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw the little mini polemic that I had on my LinkedIn post recently. I posted something with regard to um, crediting freelance translators in the gaming industry, and there was a big
I didn't
reaction.
read about that, but I will.
There was oh, there's like 90 or 100 comments on the post. Anyway, but what I noticed was that there's a huge disconnect sometimes between let's call them the LSPs, or the larger LSPs, and the freelance community sometimes,
Yes, for sure, for
and
sure.
I feel like there needs to be more dialogue between them. And it is true that in many cases there's a disconnect. The realities of a freelance translator and the realities of a single language vendor and that of a multilingual vendor and that of a client who wants to buy, they all have very different realities and sometimes competing or conflicting goals.
Yeah.
Particularly now when it comes to things like rates and the cost of living crisis and inflation and all this kind of thing, it really feels difficult and untenable, and there's problems there. There's a massive difference between what many customers want to pay for translation and what people want to pay freelance translators or smaller agencies to provide the services.
What a subject.
Yeah, we don't have to go into it like in a lot of detail now, but all I'll say is there is a huge disconnect, and it is a problem. And it's our own fault, because back in the day we decided to charge by word, and the prices started at one level, and then over the years they became commoditized and eroded and negotiated downwards by the buyers. I've been in RFP situations with big global companies where they put you in online bidding rooms and you're like recalculating your rates to try to give your best competitive rate and all of this kind of thing. And that just drives the pricing down for everybody. And now we're in a situation where we've all realized too late that this isn't tenable, So what do we do now? Do we push back as an industry? Do we push back on the customers and say, right, we used to charge you 15 cents a word. From now on, it's going to be 30 cents a word.
Right. How's that going to happen, right?
Well, because you'll always have people who will say, no, I'll give it to you 14 cents a word,
Yeah, I know.
So it's an issue, and I feel for everybody really involved, to be honest, because I feel for the linguists who aren't getting paid a fair wage, or have to deal with these agencies who are trying to get them to do translation for 2 cents or 3 cents or something like that. I feel for the small translation company owners who are stuck in the middle, who want to charge, who want to pay their translators a decent rate, but the bigger LSPs don't want to give them the rates that they want to pay. Yeah, it's complex, and of course the big LSPs, like you say, have huge overheads. Offices, IT, staff, learning and development, insurance, hardware, software. It's not easy to make a good margin these days.
I think a lot of people would in the freelance community sometimes, and I've seen posts about this. Oh, I found out that the client is paying them 18 cents and they want to pay me 5 or 6. It's like, what are we talking about here, right?
I mean, I think it's been documented pretty well. Common Sense Advisory back in the day did a lot of reporting on margins. I guess people in Slater and Nimsy are also doing it. Typically, the margins of an LSP, like if they got into 10% profit or 11, 12% profit, they were kind of doing okay, but that's not a huge, huge profit, right? So yeah, that's where we are. And so the question is, what's going to change? Like, so is AI gonna erode the cost of things further? Are we going to come up with new services, new ways of adding value? Are we going to come up with new types of customers? Are we going to have to change are we going to have to reimagine what a translation company looks like? Because
the pricing, how's it going to evolve? Because if we keep going this way, it's not going to work, as you said. So I guess, but yeah, I guess there's a lot of thinking to be done.
Yeah, but let's say, if you set up an LSP tomorrow, is it going to look like an LSP that you would have started 5 years ago? How many hats are you going to wear, and who are the other people that you want to have on your team? Okay, we have linguists. There's linguists out there. We have MT engines and technologies. We can get those things, But who do you need on your team? Are you going to invest in salespeople to bring you in more business? Are you going to invest in like a language quality person to make sure that you're able to stand over whatever it is you deliver? Are they going to be project managers? Where are they going to be based? Because everywhere is getting more expensive, and everybody's getting more expensive. And ethically, we have a responsibility to people as well. We can't take advantage of people, Yeah, so but it is a good question. Like, if you were to start a company tomorrow, what would it look like, and what roles are fundamental, and what could you be creative with?
I guess it depends on who you are and what your background is, because most people would imagine that if you start a company these days, you start like probably in the startup model, for example, with all those venture capitalists and all of those things. So that will take you in one route, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's probably how it's happening these days.
I mean, you could probably do a lot of the roles, because you've worked in on the linguistic side, you've done testing, you've done vendor management, you've done quality management. So you'd be working hard. You'd be doing long hours.
Let's see how that's gonna unfold.
I could help you with the sales and marketing side of things. There you go.
I know you can. Covered. That's how I met you. I remember talking to you, and for some reason, as you can imagine, I talked to a lot of people over the phone, because I was even in person. Some people actually came to the office back in the pre-COVID days, and that was really fun. We also met in, I would say it was 2016. I've already been thinking about it, and I think it was 2016, probably 17 maximum, because after that there were so many changes. but some people came over. And the truth is that you are the person that I kept on following. So, I mean,
Good.
I mean, I worked for a huge company, so I had to talk to a lot of people, but I just really enjoyed your non-pushy style. You were just
Yeah,
really good at talking and not being like, oh my God, please have us there and work with us and all of that. And then you
yeah.
kept being in touch in such a, you know, it was an elegant way of keeping in touch. So that's why.
I mean, it's a very fine balance, and I think things now are even more difficult, you know.
Mhm,
So if you think about um populating the top of the funnel, so your initial reach outs, your initial conversations with people,
mhm,
we know that it takes maybe between 6 and 8 attempts to reach somebody to get their attention. And that's across, phone, email, LinkedIn, maybe other social media, you know. Um, and we all have so many demands on our attention, some of them involuntary, like
mhm,
tasks and email and work, and some of them voluntary. We spend time on social media or apps or phones or whatever. Part of it's our own fault because we don't police ourselves.
mhm.
Um, so it's very difficult for people to break that ice at the beginning now. And it's the most important thing to do as well. And similarly, with your existing customers, the most important thing to do is to keep talking to them,
Yeah.
whether it's, once a year, twice a year, depending on your company and your capacity and what you're doing. But the more you talk to your customers, the better, right? Because number one, if you're not talking to them, somebody else will be talking to them. And number two, you want them to come to you with their problems,
Mhm,
with questions, with opportunities for you to help or advise or give input. Even if you can't solve all the problems, you can give support and you can give a perspective,
for
you
sure.
know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, we're reaching out to new customers or new contacts or prospective buyers is difficult. And even simple things like LinkedIn,
Mhm.
you know LinkedIn now has really, since they were bought by Microsoft, has really clamped down on the amount of contacts that you can add or that you can make each day. So now they have a daily limit of 20 people.
Mhm.
If you go over that 20 people each day, you're going to be blocked. So there's new rules in place. There's a new reality that we all have to work in. And yeah, there are some technology solutions that are there now that help us circumvent some of the issues, but it's getting trickier and trickier.
Yeah, but it's now like considered probably the tool, right? For
Oh
the
yeah,
mainstream and for all that.
I
So.
mean, I think it's something like 80% of business buyers research or check things on LinkedIn
Mhm.
before they buy. And yeah, certainly in terms of appointment making, it's, and starting conversations, it's very important. I still believe in the importance of phone calls and conversations and meetings. I think it's very, very important. They're harder to set up, but it's important to build that relationship.
Yeah, you should have some sort of e-course for this part of the business, because it's something I've never seen, and I'd be signing up, and
I
so
mean,
I'd be your
people can
first.
hire me anytime. But yeah, we've kind of played with the idea of some e-course or online content,
Hmm.
you know. Maybe it's something we should look into.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
But before that happens, so could we like have some sort of a bit of a list of what services you guys provide in the Magic Beans? Because with that name, we can already imagine that it's a lot of growth and going into the clouds.
Yeah.
But how
I
does
mean,
that translate into actual services with so the name of the services? If a possible new client wants to reach out to you, how would they find you? How would they search you?
yeah. So I guess there's two ways of looking at it. So by the way, we welcomed Laura Casanellas to the team about 2 years ago as well. And so she focuses more on the operations side of the house,
Mm-hmm.
or on helping companies who need help on an operational level. So she has a lot of experience in things like language quality management, vendor management, machine translation and technology solutions, process optimization.
Mm-hmm.
She's worn a lot of different production hats. So now we're able to offer a more holistic range of services to different people, because, for some people, growth means new clients or more clients. For other
Mm-hmm.
people, it means being able to offer new services,
Yeah.
or improve their processes, or improve their profitability, or introduce, a new MT offering or something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
we do all of those things. From a sales and marketing perspective, we do auditing, consulting, training, mentoring, shadowing.
Mm-hmm.
We provide some content creation and marketing execution as well for some clients. Um, I have two LSPs that I work with daily, which are Textrans and El Turco,
Mm-hmm.
which is a fantastic specialist provider in Istanbul.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a wonderful team who focus on Turkish and Arabic.
Mm-hmm. And the
And then,
wonderful philosophy for recruitment and all of that we have discussed. And I advise people to
yeah,
check them out and see what they do and how they do it, because it's something I'd love to do in the future. I love it so much.
have a look on their El Turco page on LinkedIn. And we actually
Mm-hmm.
just posted some videos of the localization ninja boot camp that they run every
Mm-hmm.
year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But they're a great company as well. And then we have other clients that kind of come to us for specific projects, and then they go away, and then they come back, or they need things for a certain amount of time, or they kind of come in and out, or they need training, and or maybe kind of mentoring, kind of on a more light basis as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so, and again, whether people come to us with a need for a specific service, that could be one way that they engage with us, or they might have a problem. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like we said before, do they need inspiration? Do they need to redefine who they are, or what their company is, what their goals are going to be, you know? Or do they need help developing the strategy to get to where they want to go to? Like, is their goal going to be to change what they do, to add new things, or is their goal going to be to sell up? Do they want to get out of the industry? you
Mm-hmm.
know so
Oh,
we've
yes.
worked with companies who want to sell. They've been doing it for 10 years or 20 years, and they're
Mm-hmm.
tired,
Yeah.
but
So
they want to.
you're helping them prepare for that
Yeah.
step, right? Mm.
So they want to sell to another company, but in order to do that, they need to show that they're able to onboard new business and new customers based on their existing customer base.
Mm.
So they need to show that they have a team in place, that they have a pipeline in place, that they're able to take on new customers. Because typically, when people buy companies, they'll buy a specialization or a niche or a foothold in a marketplace, or they'll buy some key accounts or some key people,
Yeah.
but then they'll want to capitalize on it and repeat it and expand it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important, if they want to get out of the industry or they want to do something else, that they're able to show that they're profitable, that they're onboarding new customers, that there's something that can be scaled up.
Yeah.
So we've worked with companies on those topics as well. And so inspiration, strategy, implementation, which is when you need something to be done. I need an MT system, or I need a language quality system. Sometimes what we see is that companies, they grow organically.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they grow very, very fast, and the processes and the systems that were fine as a 2 or 3 person company,
Right.
not fine when it's 20 people or 25 people,
Mm-hmm.
or when the clients become more sophisticated or more demanding. Or sometimes, they might have acquisitions or teams in different places, and the different teams are doing things differently, and they need somebody to come in from the outside and say, look, tell me about what you're doing. Let's all sit down together and talk about it.
Mhm.
Let me observe what's happening, and then let me make some recommendations to make your work easier and more efficient and more profitable and more enjoyable.
Mhm.
Because we do work in a pretty challenging space, so any time there's an opportunity to make people's lives easier internally as well, I think is great.
Yeah, well, I guess this is ending in a great note. I won't take up much more of your time because I know that you have lots of things to do with all your clients in different time zones and all of that
I'm
stuff.
happy to talk. Anything else you want to know? Shoot. But
Oh,
we can talk again another time on more specific topics if you like.
oh my God.
Um,
Don't get me
it's
started.
always good to catch up.
Yeah, I just love that you have this overview because it's not really a common thing to have a lot of people. Yes, we do have those so Beninatos of life who know about things, right? He's like one of my idols, obviously. But it's just that it's not so easy and common to have someone who has an overview of this particular business from the perspective that you do, because even for over 20 years now you have been focusing on this and on this alone. I know how special that is.
I mean, we're lucky to work in an industry where we have some really, really talented people and really knowledgeable people. But you're right, people come at it from different perspectives, from whether it's operational or mergers and acquisitions or, scaling.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a different perspective. Sometimes it can be dangerous, because I can kind of stride in somewhere and say, right, I wanna tell the vendor management team to do it this way, or tell the linguist to sort the problem that way, because when you've been around for so long, you feel like you have all the answers sometimes
Yep.
as well. But of course, it remains very, very important to listen whether they are internal colleagues or external customers or prospects. Everybody wants to be heard. Earlier in my career, I was accused of lacking emotional intelligence or empathy. And I always used to say, well, actually, no, it's not that I lack those things. It's more that I'm very optimistic. I'm very confident about other people's abilities. So they might see a problem, but I think that they're more than competent. They're more than capable of surmounting it. So, but I think definitely, what hasn't changed is people want to continue to be heard
Mm.
and seen and listened to. And by doing that, then yeah, we can then start to help them with solutions and creating value.
Yeah, and I know you have been doing it for a long time and you will continue doing it, which is really what we need and what we want. So I
Hopefully,
can only imagine how people understand the value that you bring to the table. So Robert, thank you so much. This was amazing. Always great talking to you in any circumstance. So I really thank you, and it has been such a treat for me to have someone who knows about the industry. That's something I really wanted to have on the podcast. So thank you so much for everything.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you. Bye.